Hello everyone, it's Gary Bruton, and today I'm at the Municipal Airport in Livermore, California. Now you might be asking yourself, what's Gary doing at a municipal airport? Well, I've learned from this article that the Collins Foundation is flying in some World War II vintage aircraft, including a B-17 and B-24 bombers. This made me feel that it would be a good idea to see if I could find out what it would feel like to fly aircraft in World War II 50 or 60 years ago. So let's go see if I can find someone to explain how it would feel to fly a bomber in a combat situation.
He's coming, Daddy. Whoa.
Oh, look at this, look at this. Now we get to a couple more.
Okay, Gary. Hi, my name's Fred Lewis. I'm the pilot of the B-17, and I'm with the Collins Foundation, a nonprofit organization that travels the United States paying tribute to World War II vets. And we do it by these two aircraft you see behind us here. The B-17 and the B-24 are the two bombers we travel with. We also have a B-25, but it's down for maintenance right now. And then in addition to that, we have the P-51 Mustang, a C-model, dual-controlled Mustang that travels with us also, which is referred to as the Little Friendly. The one behind me here is we have the namesake of the 909. Flew 140 missions during World War, about 140 missions during World War II. Never aborted a mission, never lost a crew member. And then it was brought back and was scrapped, like most of the B-17s, B-24s, and most of the bombers of World War II. They had outlived their usefulness at the end of the war, and we were just coming into the jet age. The dimensions of the B-17 here are about 103-foot wingspan, about 90 feet long. The payloads varied. You'll hear all kinds of stories, anywhere from 4,000 to 8,000 pounds. The B-24 had a bigger payload, bigger bomb bay, could fly farther, fly faster. But again, the B-17 got all the notoriety in Europe. B-24 flew both in Europe and in the Pacific. But the B-17 here, this one here, the payload, like we said, about 4,000 to 6,000 pounds. But that varied depending on how far the target was away in Germany if you're flying out of England. If you were going all the way to Berlin, you probably had less bombs and more fuel weight. So there was always a trade-off between fuel and bombs. But nonetheless, it were about 4,000 pounds worth of bombs. Whether they were carrying 100-pounders or 500-pounders or 1,000-pounders, there was always a trade-off with the fuel. The B-17, the crew members, about 10 crew members on a B-17, 4 gunners that were true gunners, and then everybody else, beside the pilots, doubled as a gunner. Flight engineer was the top turret. You'll see behind me here, that was the top turret gunner. Radio operator and navigator were in the nose dome or the shin dome of the plane, and they each had a couple 50 calibers up there. Radio operator, we don't have one, but he also had a 50 caliber, which is this open area right here in the midsection of the aircraft. 2 waist gunners, one on each side, the port and starboard side, if you want to say it the Navy way, and then the ball turret gunner, which is in the bottom, which is probably one of the most dangerous jobs, and then tail turret gunner on right at the stinger of the aircraft. Again, 4 gunners, true gunners. They were the true gunners. Everybody else, the radio operator, engineer, navigator, and gunners, and then the pilot and co-pilot, of course. And that was your 10-man crew. Average age of these guys, they varied. You've heard stories of the youngest guy being 17, maybe 18 years old, and the oldest guy being 21, 22. If there was a 25-year-old guy on the crew, he was considered the grandpa, the old man, 26 years old, and which is kind of very interesting. The dynamics, the dichotomy of these guys being that young and having the missions they had to fly and the conditions they flew in. These aircraft served a purpose. They were fire bombers at the post-war and during the 60s and 70s. This was Tanker 99, so it flew as a fire bomber, and that's why it was saved, and most of the B-17s were saved. Same with the B-25s, they were fire bombers, and some of the A-26s. If they had a purpose after the war and got used, somebody bought them, then they were used in that capacity. Otherwise, they really had no use. Our B-24, which is an interesting case, it had no useful purpose really after the war. It wasn't really a dynamic for anything else, so they really scrapped all those. Being that there were over 18,000 of those built, and that's the most military-produced aircraft the United States has ever built, is the B-24, over 18,000. That is the only one left flying as a war veteran. It was built in early '44, the B-24, our B-24, and served with the British on a Lend-Lease program. And it went out to the Pacific and did coastal patrol and chased Japanese ships. The only reason it survives is because the country of India took it and used it as coastal patrol for about 20 years. After that, it ended up with a collector in England, and we acquired it in the early 80s and started early to mid 80s and started a restoration process to get it restored static. As we were doing the restoration process, a lot of the vets said, well, you know what, there's not a B-24 flying. We'd like to see one flying. So our B-24 is the only flying veteran B-24 in existence that's flying today. There's probably only about a dozen airframes around the world in museums. The B-17, there's about 8 of those flying, give or take, on any given day. A couple in Europe, 5 or 6, 7 in the United States on any given day. But this one, a couple of the other ones travel. The Commemorative Air Force has theirs, and Experimental Aircraft Association has one. They fly theirs. Different museums fly theirs, but on a limited basis, depending on the need and demand. We try to fly every day and go to every cities for 10 months straight. Our B-17, like I said, it's one of 7 or 8 flying. There's probably about 50 of those, give or take, throughout the United States and the world in museums that are around. Being that there was over 12,700 of these built, that's all it's left of B-17s also. Another popular aircraft, of course, is the B-29, and there's not any of those flying right now. And there's a couple of museums around the world, or around the United States too. So that's it for the collection of the bombers, the formidable bombers of World War II, the 26 and 25, 24, 17, and 29. And then you got the European bombers, the Lancaster. And the B-32, if you've ever heard of that, but there's none of those around. But that's it. That's your bombers of World War II. We like the interaction, having the vets come out. People come in, donate money to go for flights, or just come out and walk through the aircraft. Just experience walking through the aircraft, which is interesting to see the tightness of the aircraft. A lot of people thought they were bigger. I think if you watch movies like Memphis Belle or The War Lover or 12 O'Clock High, I think Hollywood always makes a bigger airplane or a bigger cockpit, we always say. You get inside this airplane, there's not much room. Guys my size, I'm a little taller, a little bigger. It's kind of tight moving around in there. You always think, man, these vets, they must have been small guys. You can't move around in here. But once they got to their crew positions in the mission, they didn't move around too much. You got to stay plugged in. You're on microphone, oxygen. You stayed in your position. But it's a tight airplane. It's not that big. Even the vets come out here and walk around, and it's really interesting. If they haven't been around the airplane in 50 years, they come out here and say, man, I thought it was bigger. I'm sure it was bigger. It's really interesting to see their reaction when they come out. But more so than that is our reaction, us, the different generations, to watch how these little humble men who have all the rights to brag and gloat what they did during the war, and they don't. They are the greatest generation. The sacrifices they made as 18, 19, and 20-year-olds and what they did over there. I know what I was doing at 18, 19, and 20, and was never near the responsibility that these young kids had. Went over there as young kids, came back as probably as old men, and the stresses of war. And the reaction, the dynamics of the emotions. There are some vets that will come out here and talk all day long, and maybe that's their relief of how to suffer through war. There are some vets that sit in their car and cry and don't want to come out here near these aircraft. They're a bad memory, that's how they handle it. You watch our generation call grandpa or dad and say, hey, come out here, your aircraft's out here, the one you flew. And grandpa or dad is sitting at home saying, I don't want to see that aircraft. I have bad memories about that aircraft. So it's really neat, or not neat, but it's different, the dynamics of how people handle the range of emotions that you get with the vets out here. But nonetheless, it's a learning experience, a history lesson for us to learn, and these vets come out here and it's a history class all on its own.
My name is Walter Hughes. I was pilot on the B-24 aircraft, the aircraft that's behind me. It was a bomber, heavy bomber in World War II. I flew 35 missions in this airplane from England to Germany. A lot of heavy flak, and we had some fighter attacks. I saw the ME-262 when it first hit us in December or January of 1944-45. We were generally broken into groups and squadrons, but we usually flew and bombed as a group. There were 42 air bases in England that had American airplanes, bombers flying from them. The last several months of the war, we would put up 1,000 of these bombers between both B-24s and B-17s, and we would go to usually 1 or 2 targets, but it'd be at least 200 or 300 planes bombing any particular target. If you are interested, many of the bomb groups, and particularly ours, the 93rd, has a website. And just type in 93rd Bomb Group in a good search engine, and it will bring you to the 93rd's pages. It gives a lot of the information about groups and the individual crews with photographs and some stories of action.
Again, that's the Collins Foundation. We're an nonprofit educational foundation. And we have a website. It's Collins, Collins, foundation, the word foundation.org, O-R-G. And you go to that website, you'll see all the other aircraft. We have about 27, 28 aircraft. We have jets. We're starting to pay tribute to the Vietnam vets. If you know of the F-4 Phantom, the A-4 Skyhawk, a T-33, a UH-1 Huey, we have those aircraft too that we're trying to pay tribute to the Vietnam vets and our Vietnam Memorial Flight. But our website, and it has all the information on it. If you want to become a member of the Collins Foundation or a donor, we appreciate any kind of support because, quite frankly, it's money that keeps the aircraft in the air. You'll see on our aircraft there's a lot of names on the side of the aircraft. That's donations by kids or grandkids to have their grandpa or dad. That name stays on the aircraft forever, as long as we own the aircraft, which will probably be forever. We look for any kind of help. It's kind of fun. It's a family affair. The dynamics and dichotomy of the social people around us. We love the people that love these aircraft and love what the vets did for these aircraft. So the collinsfoundation.org, you can look on that website and find us and get all the information about the aircraft we have and what we do and our tribute to these vets.
All right, that's about it for this program, and I hope you've learned something about piloting aircraft 40 or 50 years ago. I'd like to thank Fred Lewis, the first pilot we talked to, and Walter Hughes, the World War II pilot with 35 combat missions, for talking about his experiences. Without their help, this program would be impossible. In closing, I'd like to say hello to all my friends in Pattaya and Bangkok, Thailand, and the Rotary Club International. This is Gary Bruton reporting from Livermore, California.